A farmhouse on 52 acres in Kentucky for $149,000 sounds like the kind of listing people assume has to be a typo. But it wasn't the only surprise. There is also a stone cottage near the Mississippi River for $42,000, a brick home with a two-car garage for $75,000, and a property with 6 covered parking spaces for just $60,000. The prices are real. Asking prices from the listing information, but low prices always deserve a second look. Distance from hospitals, condition of the roof, internet service, flood risk heating systems, septic insurance, and resale demand can change the value of a rural home very quickly. So today, we are not just looking at cheap Kentucky homes. We are looking at what those prices may actually buy you, who each property could suit, and the questions a careful buyer needs answered before falling in love with the photos. Kentucky remains one of those states where the map changes faster than the budget. Near major cities, prices can be just as difficult as anywhere else. But farther from the interstate, deeper into the hills or out in the farm country of western Kentucky, land and older homes can still appear at prices that feel almost forgotten. That does not mean every low-cost property is a bargain. It means the right buyer may find a different kind of life there if they understand the trade-offs. Let's begin with the place that may make the most sense for someone whose hobbies need more room than the house itself. In Graves County, a 1952 home was listed at $60,000 with 3 bedrooms, central air, forced air heat, a stone fireplace, and something you almost never see at this price: a 5-car garage plus a carport. That is 6 covered spaces. For a mechanic, a collector, a woodworker, or someone restoring old equipment, that changes the whole value equation. The home itself is not presented as perfect. It has an older layout, wood paneling, and the kind of lived-in appearance that tells you a buyer should inspect carefully rather than judge it by a few photos. But the family room has exposed beams and a stone fireplace, and the kitchen has practical cabinet space rather than a showroom renovation. The real attraction is the flexibility outside. You could keep vehicles protected, build a serious workshop, store lawn equipment, or create a small business space if zoning allows it. The listing also showed an unusually low annual property tax figure of around $40, but that is something a buyer should verify directly with the county because tax records, assessments, and exemptions can change. This could be a strong fit for a hands-on buyer who wants workspace and does not mind a quieter western Kentucky location. The question is whether the house utilities, garage wiring, insurance, and condition of the structures match the low price. A home can be inexpensive, but a failing roof across 6 bays is not. The next property is cheaper in a different way. It is not about garage space. It is about buying a simple home with some land, a metal roof, and a location close enough to everyday life that retirement may actually feel practical. In Callaway County, a brick cottage was listed for $75,000. It comes with about 1 acre, a detached 2-car garage, a fenced yard, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, central air, and a gas pack heating system. That is a much more complete setup than many buyers expect below $100,000. The cottage has a compact layout, hardwood floors, warm wood kitchen cabinets, and a partially finished attic that may offer useful overflow space. It is not a giant home, and that may be exactly why it works. Smaller houses can cost less to heat, less to furnish, and less to maintain. For a retiree, a single buyer, or a couple who would rather spend time outdoors than cleaning unused rooms, that can be an advantage. The detached garage creates room for tools, a small workshop, or storage. The acre gives you space for a dog, raised beds, fruit trees, or simply a little privacy from the road. Its location near Murray and the Kentucky Lake region is also worth noting. You still need to check driving distance to healthcare, grocery stores, and the specific services you use most, but this is not the kind of property that feels completely isolated. The catch may be the small size, the need for cosmetic work, or the limited resale pool for older rural cottages. Still, if your goal is to own rather than rent, this is the kind of listing that makes people ask whether they really need a bigger house at all. Between the $60,000 workshop property and this $75,000 cottage, the choice comes down to lifestyle. Do you want room for projects, or do you want a quieter, simpler home with a little land? And that is important, because the cheapest house is rarely the best deal for every buyer. Now let's move to a property that offers something no new construction can reproduce. History. In Princeton, Kentucky, a 1900 Victorian home was listed around $128,000. It has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, original character, stained glass, hardwood flooring, a pool, covered porches, and 4 fireplaces. A house like this is not for someone who wants a maintenance-free weekend. It is for someone who walks into an older home and notices the tall ceilings, the old trim-the-curve details, and the way a century of history changes the feeling of a room. The kitchen has been updated enough to be usable, with stainless appliances and tall storage cabinets, while the formal rooms still hold on to their original scale. There is a stained glass window, a dining room large enough for real gatherings, and several fireplaces that add character even if a buyer should never assume they are operational without inspection. Outside, the fenced yard, pool deck, screened sitting area, and outbuilding create a more private setting than you might expect in town. But this is exactly where buyers need to slow down. The home uses a floor furnace and window units rather than central HVAC. That does not automatically make it a bad purchase, but it affects comfort, efficiency, and potential upgrade costs. With an older home, a professional inspection of the foundation, electrical system, plumbing, chimney condition, and insurance availability matters more than the paint color in the living room. For the right owner, this could be a beautiful full-time home, a distinctive rental where permitted, or a restoration project with real personality. For the wrong owner, it could become a long list of expensive surprises. At $128,000, you are not only buying a house, you are taking responsibility for a piece of local history. If 4 fireplaces and stained glass feel too delicate, the next home goes in the opposite direction. In Hazard, a solid brick ranch was listed around $189,000, with nearly 4,000 square feet of total space, almost 3 acres, a metal roof, and a full basement of roughly 1,900 square feet. That is an enormous amount of room for the money, especially when the property is also within reach of downtown services. The main floor has hardwood and tile flooring, multiple dining areas, a large living room with a fireplace, generous bedrooms, and the kind of wide, mid-century layout that many families still prefer over narrow, modern floor plans. The basement is where the property becomes interesting. It is unfinished space, but that can mean workshop potential, storage, a recreation area, or future living space if local codes, moisture control, access, and finishing costs make sense. Buyers should not count unfinished square footage as finished living space, but they should recognize its potential. The listing information also stated that the property was not in a flood-prone area, which is helpful, but flood maps and insurance requirements should always be checked independently. Hazard offers more services than many small mountain communities, including healthcare, restaurants, schools, and shopping. That makes this property more practical for a family or retiree who wants space without living on a remote road. The likely trade-off is that the home may need updating, and its size means higher utility, maintenance, furnishing, and insurance costs than a small cottage. Cheap per square foot can still become expensive per month. This is a good point to pause, because the first 4 homes show 4 very different definitions of value. The $60,000 house is about workspace. The $75,000 cottage is about simple ownership. The Victorian is about character. The brick ranch is about square footage. But the next property is for the buyer who wants the home to support a more self-reliant life. In Magoffin County, a 2008 ranch was listed for $160,000 with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 18.5 acres across 2 parcels, a detached shop, a chicken coop, fruit trees, an attached 2-car garage, and an unfinished basement of around 2,000 square feet. Unlike the century-old homes on this list, this one offers newer construction and one-level living. That matters. A ranch layout can be much easier for aging in place, and a home built in 2008 may have fewer unknowns than a Victorian from 1900. The main living area is straightforward and functional: a roomy kitchen, 3 bedrooms on the same floor, 2 full bathrooms, and enough space for everyday living without feeling oversized. The basement creates future options, but it should be inspected for drainage, moisture, insulation, ceiling height, and egress before anyone plans a finished lower level. Outside is where the property begins to feel like a small homestead rather than a standard house. The chicken coop is ready for a buyer who wants fresh eggs. The fruit trees give the land a head start. The shop can hold equipment, tools, or a side project. And 18.5 acres can mean privacy gardens, trails, or room for animals, depending on the land's slope, access, soil fencing, and restrictions. That last part matters. Acreage sounds exciting, but not every acre is equally usable. Some may be wooded, steep, wet, or difficult to reach. A buyer should walk the land, review boundaries, confirm road access, and understand whether the acreage is truly suitable for the lifestyle they imagine. Still, for someone who wants more than a backyard but does not want to renovate an old farmhouse, this could be one of the most balanced properties in the group. The next home is smaller in land size but delivers a completely different feeling. In western Kentucky, near the Ohio River, an A-frame home was listed for $219,900 on 5.25 acres. It has 3 bedrooms, a finished basement, a detached 2-car garage, central air, and an outbuilding. A-frames are not ordinary houses. The high roofline, exposed beams, wall of glass, loft-like upper spaces, and dramatic interior volume make them feel more like a retreat than a standard ranch. This one has a stone and wood exterior, cathedral ceilings, a fireplace, a spiral staircase, and a finished lower level that adds nearly 1,000 square feet of flexible living space. It could work for a family, but it may appeal even more to someone who wants a rural home with a little visual drama. 5 acres is enough land to create privacy, keep a garden, add a few outdoor projects, or simply enjoy the view without taking on the responsibility of a large farm. The nearby river town setting gives you a different rhythm from the mountain properties. You can have quiet evenings at home while still being within driving distance of Owensboro for larger shopping, medical care, and services. The catch with an A-frame is not necessarily the price, it is the layout. Sloped walls can limit furniture placement. Large windows can affect energy efficiency. A buyer should inspect the roofline, insulation, drainage, and any evidence of moisture around the glass and lower level. But if you are tired of homes that all feel the same, this is the kind of property that can make a move to rural Kentucky feel like a true change of scenery. From an A-frame in the trees, we go to a home that looks as if it belongs at the end of a Storybook lane. Near Maysville in northern Kentucky, an 1890s cottage known as Windy Willows was listed for $225,000. It sits on 4 acres and includes 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, barns, a run-in shed, and a detached garage. The approach is part of the appeal. A long drive lined with weeping willow trees leading toward a house with steep gables, pointed windows, decorative trim, and the kind of visual charm that rarely survives intact for more than a century. Inside, there are tall ceilings, detailed moldings, a curved staircase, wood floors, a formal dining area, and large rooms designed for real gatherings. The primary bedroom is on the main level, while additional bedrooms and a sitting area upstairs make the house flexible for a large family, multi-generational living guests, or a buyer who works from home. The 4 acres and outbuildings add another layer of possibility. This could be a country home with space for animals, a hobby farm setup, or potentially a guest-oriented business if local laws, permits, insurance, parking, and zoning all support it. That is the important distinction. The property may have income potential, but buyers should never assume a home can become a bed and breakfast or short-term rental without checking the rules first. The lack of central air is another important factor. Older homes can be comfortable, but upgrading cooling systems in a large historic house is not a small expense. This is one of those properties where the beauty is obvious, but the true cost of ownership needs a very honest budget. If the willow-lined cottage feels too delicate, the next place is all about rugged, usable land. In northeastern Kentucky, near Catlettsburg, a handcrafted log home was listed at $299,500 on 15 fenced acres. It is the highest-priced home in this group, but it also offers a package that would cost far more to recreate from scratch. A real log home covered porches, pasture barns, a heated and cooled two-car garage with a half-bath workshop potential, a fire pit area, storage buildings, and an older trailer that may offer future possibilities after inspection and local approval. Inside the house has exposed timber, a wood-burning fireplace, rustic finishes, a practical kitchen, 2 full bathrooms, and a loft area upstairs. The point is not that it is cheap in the same way as the $42,000 cottage. The point is that, compared with many log homes, equestrian properties, and acreage packages across the country, it may be surprisingly attainable. 15 fenced acres can be meaningful for buyers, with horses, livestock, or a strong desire for privacy. But it also creates responsibilities: fence maintenance, mowing, barn repairs, drainage, insurance, and the ongoing cost of maintaining multiple structures. A buyer should verify the condition of the log, exterior roof, HVAC, septic, or sewer water source, and each outbuilding before treating them as usable value. Location matters here too. Catlettsburg is near Ashland and across the river from Huntington, which can make healthcare shopping and larger services more reachable than they would be from a truly isolated mountain property. This is the kind of home that could suit a retiree with horses, a buyer seeking a family compound, or anyone who wants a workshop and land without building everything from zero. But now it is time for the property that makes even that log home feel almost ordinary. Deep in Knott County, a 1947 farmhouse was listed for $149,000 with 52 acres of Kentucky mountain land. The house itself is modest: 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a bonus room, an unfinished basement, a brick fireplace, a barn, and a 3-car carport. The land is the headline. 52 acres can mean ridgelines, woods, private trails, hunting ground, garden space, room for equipment, and a level of separation from neighbors that many people only imagine when they talk about moving to the country. But acreage is also where fantasy and reality can drift apart. A buyer needs to know how much of the land is usable, where the boundaries actually run, whether there are easements, how steep the terrain is, whether there is reliable road access in bad weather, and what it costs to insure and maintain a home in that location. Broadband availability should be checked before any remote worker makes plans. Emergency response times and the distance to medical care should be taken seriously, especially for retirees. Still, for the buyer who wants land more than luxury, this listing changes the conversation. In many parts of the country, $149,000 would not cover a small suburban lot. Here, it may buy a farmhouse, a barn, and enough land to spend an afternoon walking without leaving your own property. The final home is not the biggest, prettiest, or easiest. It is simply the number that makes people stop scrolling. In Hickman, a historic river town near the Mississippi, a stone cottage was listed for $42,000. It has nearly 1,800 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, central air, public water and sewer, natural gas availability, a carport, and an outbuilding that once included living quarters upstairs. That price does not mean the house is move-in perfect. The listing made it clear that it needs work, and the separate building may need floor repairs before anyone considers using it as an apartment office or rental space. But at this price, the real question is not whether the home is polished. It is whether the structure, utilities, location, and repair needs create an opportunity for the right buyer. The cottage has old details, built-in storage, a pressed tin ceiling, and more interior room than its exterior suggests. The parcel is large enough that horses were reportedly allowed, although any buyer should confirm current rules and lot conditions. Hickman is quiet, historic, and closely tied to the river. That can be wonderful for someone who values slow living and river views, but it may not suit a buyer who needs frequent access to major healthcare airports, large employers, or a fast resale market. This may be the strongest example of why cheap homes require patience. A $42,000 purchase price can leave room in the budget for repairs, but only if you understand the repairs before closing. Ask for inspections. Price the electrical work, plumbing, roof, foundation, HVAC, insurance, and any restoration of the outbuilding. If those numbers stay reasonable, this could be a rare entry point into home ownership. If they do not, the low asking price can disappear quickly. That is the lesson across all 10 Kentucky properties. A low price is not a verdict. It is an invitation to investigate. The best home for a retiree may be the small brick cottage with central air and 1 acre. The best home for a mechanic may be the $60,000 property with 6 covered bays. The best home for a family may be the large brick ranch near town. The best choice for someone chasing a more independent life may be the 18.5-acre ranch or the 52-acre farmhouse, and the best deal may not be the lowest number. It may be the house whose location, condition, monthly costs, and future needs line up with the way you actually want to live. Which of these Kentucky homes would you seriously consider, and which one would you avoid? Subscribe for more affordable American homes, rural properties, and acreage listings worth looking at twice.